your head up right with me, let's go. Keep your ears up and listen to me, let's go. Keep your head up right with me, let's go. Keep your ears up,
Who's
listen
down
to me,
with
let's go. Keep your head
TTP? Who's down with TTP? You down with TTP? Who's down with TTP? Real quick, here comes the breakdown. Yo, what's up, everybody? What up, what up, what up? Never gets old. All right. Yo, welcome back, man. I know it's been a minute. I was in the middle of a lot of transitions. People don't know right now, military. So I do these in between the mission-based stuff I'm doing. So, between the music and this, I'm also juggling them between all the mission stuff I'm doing for the government right now. So, that's about as far as I'm going to turn around and tell you about that. But, yeah, it gets difficult to kind of juggle them sometimes, man, because the transitioning back and forth in different areas. So, it is what it is. So I try to do these videos when I can. But we good. We have the time. So you already know, if you see my face, you know what time it is. It is TTP, also known as Trust the Plus. And again, if you do not know who this is that stands before you, allow me to let you know, as a first-time viewer, I am the MICCASTERJ. That's me, the Mike Caster. J. The J is emphasized. That's why I never say that. I don't need to spell J for you. But yeah. So turn around. We're doing another episode. Today's episode is gonna be a little bit weird because we're dealing with our first straight up emotional trigger, which is kind of different from mostly mental triggers that tend to tap into emotional triggers. And this is our first genuine emotional trigger. So the navigation around these will kind of be a little bit differently. It'll follow the same format, but it'll be a little bit different, just a little bit. All right. So in this portion, what we're gonna most likely focus on is identifying issues with these emotional triggers, how they cause, what results to them, how they affect people in certain instances and what they can lead up to, and kind of deal with it around there from there, you know what I mean? So that being said, we're going to be talking about criticism. All right. So, yeah, today we're going to hit on the tough emotional trigger, because we all at some point has either dished out criticism or has turned around and talked, gave our own form of criticism at certain points. So, yeah. Today we're talking about criticism. And our title, if you were curious, because I did this backwards. Usually I say the title first and then say we're talking about it. But our title, in case you're curious, is the cynicism of criticism. All right. And again, if you don't know, we're talking about criticism. Still did it. So as always, we're going to roll up in this with the definition. I'm going to hit you with the definition, and it goes like this, straight from the Webster itself. Criticism is the act of expressing disapproval and of noting the problems or fault of a person or thing. The act of criticizing someone or something. Repeating it again. And then even the second definition is a remark or comment that expresses disapproval a someone or something. Okay? So actually want you to focus on that for a minute, man. So it's us literally, criticism is literally going out your way to point out the flaws in things, man. Most times it's unwarranted. I am not going to lie to you. I know people say, well, what about constructive criticism? Well, to be really honest, criticism is criticism in general, even if it's constructive, which we'll get to later on. At the end of the day, it's still criticism, still some form of verbiage that substantiates from observing something that somebody wants to either exploit, point out, mitigate, insert whatever word you want to put in to kind of justify it. But at the end of the day, it's still going out your way to turn around and make that effort to make those flaws or imperfections or that disapproval known. All right. So that being said, what we're going to go into and where it's going to stem a little bit differently is usually after the definition, we talk about how it enters your life. But because this is emotional triggers work differently from mental triggers. Emotional triggers are usually caused by us, or it's caused by someone else that is directed to us. So it works differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into what's wrong with it. All right, what is wrong with criticism? Aside from the obvious, but we're really going to break it down a little bit. So, one thing about criticism that makes it really hard is that it is incumbent upon pointing out failure. And if we've paid attention to society and the way the world is going, no one likes being exposed in their failure. No one likes being called out on their mistakes and stuff. And to be really honest, most cases that's a maturity thing, man. A lot of people have a lot of insecurities into admitting their own faults. And then even as I say this, I've had moments and sometimes where people catch you at the wrong moment. You don't want to just sit here and just be like, yeah, all right, I did that straight up. It's hard. So it takes a lot of maturity and kind of that build up and that thought process to kind of be able to take that and then roll with it. Because the initial point of it is even if criticism is unwarranted, whether it's unconstructive or it's just really judgmental criticism, it still always stems from some kind of truth, which people hate to admit. Because if it was said for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, there can be exaggerations in the way that it's said, but if it was said, there's some form of truth, or there's some reason that initiated that person to initially say what they said. So, a lot of times, another thing that stems from criticism is resentment. So, a lot of people just don't know how to gauge at someone's mistakes or, correct somebody, but ultimately making them feel like they're incompetent. You know what I'm saying? Let's call it what it is, a freaking nincompoop, a mook. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of times people will turn around and criticize someone, but they'll beat it down all the way to the point where it loses the value of that learning portion, whether if they came at it at a different angle, somebody would be more open to actually understanding what is being said. So, another thing that's really interesting about criticism that definitely turned around, and I can say is be something that you can consider what's wrong with it, is it calls for two things, and this is what I've read out of stuff. I got my notes here and everything. It calls for two things that people really hate. Again, going back to society, how it is now. One of them, it calls for submission. We hate submission. So, as a society, we're taught to stand firm on your beliefs and everything like that. Everything is opinion. And, the truth of the matter is, and people are going to watch this and be upset when I say this line, but testing, is this thing on? everything ain't opinion. Some stuff is fact. I ain't gonna lie, man. Or it's fact encased in opinion, but there's still a fact in there. All right. So going back to criticism again, there usually is some form of truth in criticism. So sometimes we hate submitting to that truth because everybody has beef with truth. All right. Which is why the whole everything's opinion thing counts, because it just makes it easier than saying I'm wrong. If we just qualify as everything's opinion, we can just redundantly turn around and just case off the things we don't want to accept. And that's a bad habit, yo. It's a very bad habit to have, because you gain no learning value from that, gain no growth as a person. And, you know, this also needs to be said. There's more to being an adult than how well you can talk back. There's a listening portion that we also got to gravitate to, you know. And again, even biblically, for my Christian folks, yo, submission is a real encased point in Christian culture and in loving God and understanding God. So you can't run from that, man. There's submission in religion. There's submission in your daily life. There's submission when you turn around, you have kids. There's submission when you turn around and get in relationships. Like, so criticism kind of puts you in even though I described all those things you can make choices on, but when criticism is thrown out there, it puts you in this hard case fact where you have to now stare it right in the face. And people hate that. Also, again, at some points, because of some people don't know how to criticize, it devalues. People don't like being devalued. All right. You know, going back to the Barney songs, when you are special, you're the only one. That's right. I did that on the internet. Can't go back now. It's in the cloud. But no, for real. You know, everyone likes to turn around and feeling special. Everyone likes to turn around and feeling, like they mean something and everything like that. And criticism gives people a point in time where it can literally shred that thought process, man. Especially if somebody's really bad at it, and it can make people second guess. So, you know, it's annoying for people, and it's why it's so hard for people to get over the hump when they're faced with it. And again, you know, because it's criticism, or especially when you're dealing with critical people, who mostly where all the negative context for criticism comes from, ignores these two key points that appeal to our human nature, is oftentimes why people feel like criticism is just, no one wants it, no one likes it. So it's important and it's imperative to understand the usage of it. But before we go into that, he already knows I gotta go with how it affects people. All right. So we kind of delve into that a little bit, but we're gonna go into a little couple more other things. Okay. So why do we do it? How does it affect people? Why do we do it? How does it affect people? So again, it's emotional, so it ties a little differently. So, you know, criticism normally comes from an ego-driven place, man. It's usually defensive. A lot of people use it as defensiveness, and again, it's why it has a negative rep. So if we disagree with a behavior or an attitude and stuff like that, like it says here in my notes, or if, you know, we feel devalued or we feel insulted, we tend to lash back out and we give criticism back ourselves. Or even, you know, even sometimes even none of that even happened, we tend to turn around and take it upon ourselves to give that criticism anyway. Especially if, you know, somebody was having a bad day or something like that, and they just kind of saw that one thing that just kind of made them kind of like, oh, all right, that's the last straw. And then fortunately that received the brunt of their criticism. So they took all that negative energy and they placed it on something else, man. And criticism can easily create a steady stream of negative energy, which can fuel a lot of anxiety and depression. Like criticism can literally do the job for mental health triggers before you even feel them. And that's not good, man. There's enough going on in the world without you adding to somebody else's fire with your own fire. and instilling more damage to them mentally or emotionally, because constant criticism especially can really weigh heavy on the people, man. Can lead to suicidal thoughts, because it can put people in a deep state of depression. We talked about that. Constant sadness. If you're the person that's going to your job and your boss is always telling you what's wrong, that creates a steady stream of negativity. A steady stream of negativity creates a constant sadness. That constant sadness, as we talked about when we went over depression, when it remains and it stays there and it doesn't disappear and it festers, becomes depression. So that criticism literally can go from a opportunity to kind of help somebody understand more about themselves to just straight on just destroying somebody internally, man. Create anger, creates tension, creates hate, and all these things are negative emotions, and all this negative energy stems into other stuff that mentally can affect people. All right, put people in a different place, in a different headspace that is just really unhealthy, man. We're gonna call it what it is. It's really unhealthy. Don't recommend. 1 out of 10. Not even 1 out of 10. 0 out of 10, yo. At least for the unhealthy version of it. So, yeah, it's really imperative that you think about the reason why you're criticizing. All right. There's multiple ways to go about it. Is your criticism coming from a place of sincerity, genuineness? Are you actually trying to create a solution for what it is that you're criticizing? Was the moment even worth criticizing? Like if somebody accidentally spilled water and you harped on that and you're like, oh, you spilled water. Oh, you're so clumsy. Oh, this, that, and the third. And this person never spills water ever in their life. And this was the first time they spilled it. And what they spilled was water, which will dry up and leave no mess. And here you are harping and criticizing them and calling like that. You got to think about that. Is your criticism attacking somebody's character? That is one of the first scenarios to know that you're doing criticism wrong. If your criticism stems from some objectifying somebody's character, that is hateful. That is a negative form of criticism. There is no positivity in that. You cannot alter someone's personality and characteristics. All right. You can help somebody be aware of their habits, if they're bad habits, or if they're stuff that's detrimental to themselves, that's detrimental to their progression, or it's also affecting you negatively. Then that's a good reason for criticism. All right. To help somebody understand about themselves. But if you're just going out your way to just be like, hey, I don't like that, and your reason for not liking that is just because you personally don't like it, that's not good. That's not positive criticism. That's not the reason to do it, yo. All right. So we gotta be cognizant of our reasoning for why we are criticizing. If you're criticizing is creating a backlash, it's probably because you're not throwing in there that's positive. So everybody always hears this compliment of sandwiches, which now has become a negative thing because everybody feels like it's a fake thing, but it's really not when used properly. It can be a fake thing when someone's kind of like beating around the bush just to tell you what they negatively do. So they just tell you something really nice real quick, and then they just focus on the negative. Yeah, that's a terrible compliment sandwich. All right. But if your criticism is more so along the lines of you're highlighting all the good stuff and you're saying how the negative stuff is impeding on everything that you're doing that's good, that's effective criticism because it's helping bring more value to that person. So it's not saying that, hey, you're flawed, you're terrible, you're awful. It's just like, hey, this is great. Everything that you're doing here is fantastic, but this part that you're doing here is going to affect all that. It's ruining all the hard work you're putting in. That's a different level of criticism. People can respect that because at the end of the day, you're looking to help them benefit from it. If they can't benefit from your criticism, then why do it? It becomes judgmental. All right. And no one likes being judged. And we don't have that authority to judge each other. Again, another biblical aspect for you. We don't have that authority to judge each other, all right? So criticism ultimately should not attack people's character, should not attack people's personalities, should not be turned around trying to devalue, should not be creating hate, resentment, depression, anxiety, all these things that can affect you mentally and really put you in an emotional tizzy. That's not good criticism, yo. So, yeah, we talked about all the stuff and the negative ways and everything like that. So how do you deal with it? How do you do it properly? Well, first off, if your criticism stems, if you're criticizing, if you're being criticized and it's stemming from those things I said previously, what you need to know is it needs to be water off a duck's back, man. Thank you for your words. Keep it pushing, man. If it is not actually creating some kind of value from the criticism that you're receiving, ultimately it's a bad form of criticism and you shouldn't pay any attention. I'm just going to call it what it is. If it has no point to where it benefits you and it's not making you see something truthfully about yourself, but making you see it in a way that can only help bring more value to yourself, or make you aware that it's also a detriment to others, then it's not worth listening to. It's an opinion. It's an opinion. That's when you can use that. When it stems on no truth whatsoever and it's just straight bias, that is an opinion. All right. When it stems off of truth and it's literally ultimately trying to become a benefactor to your growth, it's criticism, yo, and it's truth. And if you're avoiding that, it's just because you don't want to turn around and face that truth at the moment. It's a maturity part. Just being honest, man. I'm not talking to you, talking with you. I wouldn't understand what I'm saying if I didn't feel those same emotions. So sometimes you gotta be honest with yourself, yo, which is hard to do, but we gotta get to a place where we're better at it. But again, appeal to that human nature, man. It shouldn't be trying to force someone to alter themselves, but more along the lines of, again, betterment. Placement on betterment. That's how your criticism should be focused around. How is this going to better somebody? What solution is this creating? Is this worth the time to talk about or point out? You know what I mean? Can I learn from it? Can this person learn from it? These are things, this is how they use it properly. If these are not associated in your form of criticism or in that person's form of criticism directed to you, then it's not worth listening to. It's not going to help you. And it's also not to say that if somebody is turning around describing your character, that is not something that you can't listen to either. Because again, the important thing is, can you learn from it? Or is what they're talking about showing you in the ways in which it's detrimental to yourself and other people around you? All right. So I want to just kind of make sure I kind of clarify on that. Again, is there a solution? Is there value to this information that I'm receiving? Is there truth behind it? If there's truth behind it, you should listen. You should take it. Even if it's coming from somebody who doesn't know how to give it well, thank them. You should still take that part that you knew was true, that you have observed about yourself. Because 9 out of 10 times when we receive the criticism, a lot of times we get mad because we already knew. We already knew. You know what I'm saying? So, you got to be able to turn around and take it. That's another way of properly dealing with criticism. You got to take it. You can't just give it out and then not just take it, because we love giving it out. We love saying our piece. We don't like taking it back. And bear in mind at the time that, again, some people are just not articulate enough to kind of explain the things that they want to say to you. So, sometimes criticism might not make sense in the moment. So it's important that, especially if you're a quick person to kind of get hurt if you're being criticized, kind of take that moment to yourself to then calm down and then get a more calm thought process going and reevaluate what was said. All right. Also, definitely try not to give out criticism with spite or bitterness. All right. Try and keep your emotions out of it when you are getting criticism. Again, take that personal bias out. That's another way in which you can turn around and reinforce that positive criticism when you take less of yourself out of it and it's more focused on the person and ways to benefit them through what you're saying. All right. Giving them a different point of view, perspective. Is your criticism drawing that perspective for that person to reflect on? If there's no perspective from it, it's probably more than likely you're doing it out of bias, or the person talking to you is doing it out of bias. All right. So, working on interpersonal skills. And just keep it honest, man. Keep it honest, but don't be rude about it. Don't beat around the bush, but also understand that you're still talking to a human being at the end of the day. So you want it to really focus on treating them with respect. There should be a respect behind the criticism you're giving. Of course, going into stuff like constructive criticism, on the other hand, it's designed to point out mistakes, but it's also designed to show you where and how to improve. So again, improvements, a key factor in making criticism work. People love improving. People love being better. People like getting better. People like progressing. If your criticism is focused and encompasses this stuff, you'll get more ears. But if you're just focused on just degrading, devaluing, again, all those words, degrading, devaluing, disrespecting, like choose a D word, yo, being a dick. No, ain't nobody gonna hear you. All right. And then, of course, aside from that, when dealing with it, it's usually easier to accept it when it's that way. It'll still hurt a little, but it's usually to accept constructive criticism when it's done in that matter. All right. Because you always remember the advantages it gave you. And then, of course, some key points I have right here that I also took from some of my notes is, again, focus on how to improve when you hear it. Focus on the behavior you would like to see, not the personality of your partner or child or employee when you're giving it. All right. Because especially managers, I know we got to follow that criteria. I've been a manager too. I know we got to follow that criteria, and it says you got to put something down on the paper. But if there's nothing down on the paper, don't force it. Instead, focus on reinforcing the stuff that they are doing good, and then draw attention to the criticism that way. Instead of just trying to create something to jot down on a piece of paper, man, don't do it. And then if there's stuff to improve on, try and associate to how it can devalue the other work or the other stuff that this person is doing, instead of just creating a whole session of where you're just completely melting this person down and just trying to like burn them to ash. All right. Encourage change. That's what it should also focus around. Instead of undermining confidence, you don't want your criticism to rip a person down. Again, we're going back to anxiety and depression. If you are causing that person depression and anxiety, your criticism sucks, yo. You need to be criticized. So let's focus on an environment of lifting each other up through that criticism. Sincerely offer help. Criticism can actually be helpful. It's not supposed to be negative. It's not supposed to be negative. We as human beings use it in the negative connotation, but criticism itself was not meant to be negative. It's meant for self-improvement. So we need to definitely kind of focus back on hand to that portion of it. The more hopeful we're trying to think of when it comes to that criticism, the better it is for that person, the better ear you can get from them, and the better it helps them improve. And then, respecting his or her autonomy. I mean, again, characteristics, personalities, and stuff like that. You can have stuff you don't like about somebody. It doesn't give you the right to turn around and tell them to change it. And again, we're talking about if your person is a nose picker, yo, they pick their nose, dude. You can tell them not to touch you with it and make sure they wash their hands. You can't just tell them it's not being a nose picker. I know that's a really childish thing to bring up. I'm just saying, he's turning around, he's saying, he's giving a hint, he's a nose picker. No, I mean, I do, but I wash my hands. Get another thing I can't take back on the internet. I don't care. I'm married. I already got my lady. I don't need to impress y'all. But yeah, man. Stop trying to alter people. It's not supposed to be altering. It's supposed to be improving. Okay. Resist the urge to punish or withdraw affection. So don't turn around and give people ultimatums with your criticism, which I didn't turn around and put apart. That should have been part of that effect part. Should have been through this whole list. You know, your criticism should have come with an ultimatum, man. I don't know if you know much or this is your first time dealing with the humankind, but usually when you create ultimatums to people, they're going to choose the choice that equals resistance. I've never seen any ultimatum go well unless it's a death threat and that person can easily carry it out. Other than that, a lot of times ultimatums, humans are going to choose D. They want the smoke. And then, of course, man, let's see what the Bible says about criticism. All right. I thought I had this up, so, deal with me for one moment, man. Yeah. So, again, I hope you guys are gaining something out of this, because, again, criticism is a touchy subject, man. Because we all like giving our 2 cents. Everyone likes feeling they can add value. And, a lot of cases, even people who mean well with criticism can still turn around and do it wrong. Because, at the end of the day, just so much we want to turn around and give somebody from a perspective of our own viewing of them. But we tend to take other things out of consideration, which is how our criticism falls on deaf ears. Sorry, checking on the missus, guys. I told you, I don't do no edits, man. I don't do no edits. Boom, 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 boom. But, yeah, we gotta fall on caution to how we go about speaking to one another. I really want to emphasize that part, like how we go about speaking to one another. It's important, man. It is incredibly important. All right. So. All right. Here we go, yo. I got something for you guys. So Ephesians Chapter 4, verse 29. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. All right. But then I'll also give you a second one, Proverbs chapter 15, verse 31 to 32. The ear that listens to life, giving reproof, will dwell among the wise. Whoever ignores instructions despises himself, but he who listens to reproof gains intelligence. And all those two things lead on to say is the same things that we talked about. One, follow the golden rule. If you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say it. But again, when you talk, it shouldn't be corrupting. It should be only to lift, to encourage, all right? At the same time, when it is falling upon that truth and it is giving you things that are hard to hear, it's important to have an ear to be able to listen to it, even if it's a hard pill to swallow. Because again, when you ignore it, you're only hurting yourself. You're only continuing those lies. You're only ignoring those truths, and it's only being detrimental to you. All right. If you can gain something and it can create that self-improvement in you, why ignore it? You get what I'm saying? Because, at the end of the day, if somebody means well and just trying to tell you something, there's no easy way to tell a person the truth. All right? There's no nice way. There's no blanket. There's no, even with the compliment sandwich thing, at the end of the day, I'm still going to tell you something truthfully. It's still going to bother you if it's going to bother you. Like, there's no nice way to tell someone the truth. Okay? And because you don't like it does not mean it's opinion. Because you don't like it does not mean it's opinion. Because you don't like it does not mean it's opinion. Again, we gotta push out of this state of mind where we want to keep disregarding fact and truth. All right, understand which is which. As a matter of fact, be honest with yourself about which is which, because usually, if you're lashing out against it, it's probably because you already know the answer of which one it falls under. All right. But other than that, that's all I got for you on criticism. All right, man. This has been TTP, and this has been one of our first talks about an emotional trigger. And this was about criticism. So go out there with the tools that I have given you and provide proper feedback. That's the key word right there. Feedback, back and forth, because you want to also make sure that your criticism is given, but then you're also receiving. All right, creates for better conversation, that feedback. So go out in there, give proper feedback, man, and take some feedback for yourself and help make this world better by allowing each of us to lift each other up and help each other improve instead of putting each other down. Again, 2022, we need to start looking towards a different outlook, a different view, instead of sitting here and continuing the trends of just burning each other. All right, let's do something different. I challenge you right here. I challenge you to turn around and go out there and be different. Go against the grain. Go against the status quo and actually lift people up. I dare you to do it. Let's see what happens. Other than that, this has been Mike Caster J. All right, coming at you again. As always, I love you. No, I don't know you, but I love you anyway. All right. Whether you believe or you do or you don't believe, you're still my brother and sister in Christ. So I'm gonna love on you anyway. So I'll see you next time on the next episode of TTP. Peace out.